I never should have taken Route 49 that night. Even now, 2 months later, I still check weather reports before driving anywhere, especially when it rains. And in Kansas, it rains hard. That night the storm rolled over Wichita just after sunset. Heavy clouds swallowed the skyline, lightning flashing somewhere behind the buildings, rain sliding endlessly down the windshield like the highway itself was underwater. I had just left my cousin's funeral. Nobody in my family talked much afterward. We just stood around pretending coffee could somehow make grief feel smaller. By the time I finally got back into my car, it was already close to midnight. The interstate heading north had partially flooded. Traffic was being redirected through older back roads. That's how I ended up on Route 49, a road I had never even heard of before that night. At first, it didn't feel strange, just empty. Long stretches of wet pavement, telephone poles disappearing into darkness, fields so wide they looked endless beneath the storm clouds. The rain never stopped. It hammered against the roof of my car so hard it sounded like static. Every few miles, I'd pass an old farmhouse sitting far back in the fields, most of them completely dark. No porch lights, no movement, just silhouettes during lightning flashes. I remember checking my GPS at one point and noticing something strange. The signal kept drifting, like the map couldn't fully locate the road. The blue arrow representing my car would shake slightly, then snap back into place. I figured the storm was interfering with reception. At least that's what I told myself. About 40 minutes into the drive, I noticed the first warning sign. A faded metal board near the roadside, half tilted into the mud. It read, "Flash flood area next 18 miles." The lettering looked old, almost abandoned. A few minutes later, the road narrowed. Trees started appearing more frequently beside the highway, tall black shapes swaying in the rain. That's when I saw him, standing near the edge of a cornfield. Tall, much taller than normal. At first I thought it was a utility worker wearing some kind of long raincoat. He wasn't moving, not even slightly. The rain poured over him in sheets, but he just stood there facing the road. I couldn't see his face. My headlights never seemed to reach it properly. I slowed down a little as I passed, and I remember feeling this sudden urge, not to look directly at him, like some instinct buried deep in my chest was trying to pull my eyes away. But I looked anyway, and for 1 second, right as lightning flashed over the fields, I realized something that made my stomach tighten. There was no vehicle nearby, no truck, no hazard lights, nothing. Just that figure standing completely alone beside the highway in the storm. Then he disappeared behind me. I actually laughed nervously after passing him. Not because it was funny, but because my brain was trying to force the moment to make sense. Maybe a stranded farmer. Maybe someone waiting for help. Maybe I was just exhausted. I turned the radio louder. Country music crackled through heavy static. The rain kept falling. Miles passed. Or at least I think they did. Because around 10 minutes later, I saw him again. Further ahead on the same road. Standing in almost the exact same position. Same stillness. Same long dark coat hanging toward the flooded grass. This time my hands tightened around the steering wheel. I remember whispering, "No," like saying it something quietly would somehow change what I was seeing. My headlights swept across him as I got closer. Still no face. Still no movement. And again, there was no vehicle anywhere nearby. I drove past faster this time, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it over the rain. That's when I started checking my mirrors. Constantly. Every few seconds. The storm behind me looked endless. Just darkness. Rain. Occasional flashes of lightning. Then I noticed something else. Earlier that night, there had been cars behind me. Not many, but enough to notice headlights every now and then. Now the road behind me was empty. Completely empty. Except, far in the distance, I saw two dim amber lights, very low to the ground, almost blending into the rain. At first I thought it was another car, but the lights never got closer, never drifted farther away either. They just stayed there, deep inside the storm, following. And that was the moment I understood something on Route 49 had started following me too. The amber lights stayed behind me for another 5 minutes. Never closer, never farther. Just there, buried deep inside the rain. I tried convincing myself it was another driver keeping distance because of the storm. But something about those lights felt wrong. Too low, too steady. Almost like I was staring through the darkness. The farther north I drove, the emptier Route 49 became. The fields widened on both sides of the highway until it felt like I was driving through an endless black ocean. Rainwater flooded parts of the road, forcing me to slow down. That's when I saw the sign for Vesper Ridge. Population 312. The town appeared suddenly through the storm. A few dim lights. A silent main road. Telephone poles leaning slightly in the wind. Everything looked faded. Like the entire town had been sitting in the rain for decades. I pulled into a small roadside diner near the edge of town. The neon sign above it flickered weakly through the storm. Inside, only 4 people sat scattered across the room. Nobody was talking. I remember how strange that felt. Most roadside diners at night have some kind of sound. Silverware, conversation, coffee machines. But this place felt muted. Like everyone inside was listening for something outside. Rain tapped softly against the windows. I sat near the far end of the counter. An older woman stood behind it. Thin face, gray hair tied back tightly. Her name tag read, Marlowe. She poured coffee without saying a word. I tried warming my hands against the cup, but I couldn't stop thinking about the figure beside the road. Finally, I asked her if there had been any stranded drivers nearby. The moment I said that, the entire diner went still. Not dramatic, not sudden, just quiet in a way that felt wrong. Marlowe slowly looked toward the rain outside, then back at me, and in the calmest voice imaginable, she asked, "You saw somebody standing out there?" I nodded. For a few seconds she didn't respond. Then she leaned slightly closer and whispered, "If you saw it once, keep driving." That word hit me immediately. Not him. Not a person. I gave a nervous laugh and asked what she meant. But Marlowe stepped back before answering, like she already regretted saying anything. One of the men sitting near the window quietly stood up and walked deeper into the diner. He never looked outside. None of them did. That's what unsettled me the most. Not fear. Avoidance. Like everybody in Vesper Ridge had silently agreed never to acknowledge whatever walked those roads during storms. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And the power went out completely. Darkness swallowed the diner. Outside, lightning flashed across the street, and for one horrifying second, I saw the figure again, standing beneath the rain. Closer now, much closer. Its shape looked wrong somehow. Too tall, too thin, its arms hanging lower than they should have, and its head tilted slightly to one side, like it was studying the diner, studying me. Nobody else looked toward the window. Nobody moved. Lightning flashed again, and the figure was gone. That was enough for me. I grabbed my keys and rushed back into the storm. Rain slammed against my face the second I stepped outside. I got into my car, locked the doors immediately, and turned the ignition. The engine struggled. For one terrible second, nothing happened. Then finally, it started. The radio burst alive with loud static. I reached to shut it off, but through the crackling noise, I heard a voice, distorted, weak, almost buried beneath the storm, whispering, "Do not stop on flooded roads." Then the radio went silent again, just static. I stared through the windshield for a second, trying to convince myself I hadn't actually heard a voice. But deep down, I already knew something was terribly wrong with Route 49. I pulled away from the diner fast. The tires hissed across the wet pavement as Vesper Ridge disappeared behind me. Rain blurred everything beyond the headlights. Fields, trees, telephone poles, all swallowed by darkness. The road stretched endlessly ahead, and after a while, I realized something strange. I had passed a single sign in nearly 20 minutes. No exits, no intersections, nothing. Just the same empty highway cutting through the storm. I checked the dashboard clock. 12:47 a.m. A few minutes later I checked again. 12:47. The seconds weren't moving. My stomach tightened. I tapped the screen once. Nothing changed. Then lightning flashed across the fields beside the road. And for one horrifying instant, I saw the figure standing beside a telephone pole, watching my car pass. This time it looked closer than ever before, tall enough that its head almost aligned with the lower wires above the road. I pressed harder on the gas pedal. The rain became heavier, so heavy the world beyond the windshield almost vanished completely. Then came the sound, clicking, metallic, slow, somewhere outside the car. Click, click, click. At first I thought it was something stuck beneath the vehicle, but the rhythm changed whenever I slowed down, like it was matching my speed. I turned off the radio completely, and the clicking stopped. Silence filled the car. Then, another flash of lightning. The figure was no longer beside the road. Now it stood farther ahead, directly near the center of the highway, motionless, rain pouring around it. I slammed the brakes instinctively. The car skidded slightly across the flooded pavement. For 1 second, my headlights illuminated the figure completely. Long, dark coat, arms hanging unnaturally low, head tilted sideways, and its face. I still wish I had never seen it. The skin looked pale gray beneath the rain. Smooth, stretched too tightly, and where its eyes should have been, there was only darkness. Not empty sockets, just blackness, like the storm itself had hollowed them out. Then the headlights flickered, only for a second, but when they stabilized again, the road ahead was empty. The figure was gone. I could barely breathe now. Every instinct told me to turn around, but something felt wrong behind me too. Like the storm itself had closed around the highway. Then suddenly, the engine sputtered. Once, twice, the dashboard lights dimmed, and the car rolled slowly to a stop beside an open flooded field. Rain hammered the roof violently. The engine died completely. And out there, beyond the headlights, I saw movement. Far ahead on the road, a tall shape emerging slowly through the rain, walking toward me for the very first time. Slowly, patiently, like it already knew there was nowhere left for me to go. The figure kept walking toward my car, slowly, never rushing. Rain poured over the highway so heavily that parts of the road had completely disappeared beneath water. But somehow, it kept moving forward without hesitation, like it had crossed this road 1,000 times before. I locked the doors again even though I knew it probably wouldn't matter. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. No signal, just one empty bar blinking weakly in the corner of the screen. The figure grew closer. Still far enough that I couldn't fully see its face, but close enough now to understand something horrifying. Its movements weren't human, not unnatural in an exaggerated way. Worse, subtle, like someone trying very hard to imitate how people walk, without fully understanding it. Another flash of lightning tore across the sky, and suddenly, every instinct inside me screamed to get out of the car. I don't know why. I still can't explain it. But staying there felt wrong. Like the vehicle itself had become a trap. I grabbed my jacket and ran into the storm. Cold rain hit me instantly. The flooded ground soaked through my shoes as I stumbled away from the highway. Behind me, I heard no footsteps. No running. Nothing. That silence terrified me more than any sound could have. I kept moving through the rain until I saw old railroad crossing lights ahead in the darkness. Red signals blinking slowly through the storm. Beyond them stretched empty plains swallowed by fog and rain. I stopped beneath the crossing post trying to catch my breath. And that's when I noticed something impossible. The storm had gone completely quiet. No thunder. No wind. Even the rain sounded distant somehow. Then the crossing bells began ringing. Slow. Mechanical. Warning something was coming. But there were no tracks visible beneath the floodwater anymore. Only darkness. Then, far out in the rain, a light appeared. A single pale glow moving silently toward the crossing. At first I thought it was another vehicle, but as it grew closer, I realized I was looking at an old freight train. Its surface looked faded and ancient beneath the storm. Windows dark, metal covered in shadows. And the strangest part, I couldn't hear it. No roaring engine, no grinding wheels. The train moved almost silently through the flooded crossing. Car after car disappearing through the rain. And standing between two of the train cars was the figure, the Raincrow, perfectly still, watching me. Lightning flashed overhead, and for the first time, I saw its face clearly. The skin stretched pale and tight like wet paper, the mouth unnaturally wide, and those empty black eyes, completely motionless, not angry, not hungry, just observing, like it was deciding whether I belonged with it. The train continued passing through the storm. Then slowly, the figure disappeared back into the darkness between the cars. And just like that, the rain stopped. Completely. The silence afterward felt unreal. Within minutes, the clouds began breaking apart above the plains. Morning light slowly spread across the fields around Route 49. The flooded road looked normal again. No figure. No train. No sign Vesper Ridge had ever existed nearby. When I finally reached the nearest town hours later, I asked the gas station clerk about Route 49. The man stared at me strangely. Then he said something I still think about almost every night. He told me storms out there sometimes make people see things, especially people already carrying something heavy inside them. People grieving. People exhausted. People drifting through life alone. I never told him about my cousin, or how empty I'd felt driving into that storm. I never told him anything. I just left. That was 2 months ago. I live in Seattle now, far away from Kansas, far away from Route 49. But sometimes late at night, when rain hits my apartment windows hard enough, I look down at the street below, and standing beneath the flickering traffic light across the road, I swear I can still see a tall figure waiting in the rain, motionless, patient, watching me like the storm never really let me go.